Future is black.
Future is black.
The future is black on many levels, and I will explain. First of all, we are dying faster than anybody is dying, and we are procreating faster than we are dying. Our populations are getting younger and younger. We are the future energy. We are the future of the workplace. We are the future of consumption. We are the future of production. We are the future of enterprise. We are the future of everything. Nobody's dying in Asia. They are going to live long. You won't believe it. Nobody's dying in North America. First of all, they are not getting married. Those who are getting married are married people of the same sex. And the more men marry men and women marry men,
the less procreation
is happening. The less production is happening. Africa is producing at an incredible rate. We are the future energy. We are the future population. Now, the whole world is coming to Africa to engage, whether we like it or not. We are the future market.
If you say we're the future energy, future all this, right? But what we are procreating, we're increasing in number. But are we increasing in value? Are we increasing in
sense?
Interestingly, we are. You see, a new generation of Africans are rising, and they are rising fast.
Hello, Lagos. Hello, Nigeria. Hello, Africa. Hello, world. This is Black Flame. And this episode is a dream come true for me personally. I'm really grateful to have two guests on this episode and to actually have this episode happen. I'm going to jump right into it. So I'll do the introductions real quick. First of all, I call him Egbon. I call him legend. He doesn't like me calling him legend, but we cannot but call him legend. He's a powerhouse in African music. He's birthed many musical destinies and stewarded many others. And mine is one of those he has stewarded. His name is Olumide Ogwade ID Cabasa.
Thank you for having me.
And on my left, is someone who, if you follow Black Flame, I use the word uplines, like my uplines. I just think it's cooler than saying mentor, coach, or I just like the sound of uplines. And in a way, both personalities on this episode are my uplines, both of them. ID Cabasa is always, is an Egbon for life. Now, my other guest is an upline for both of us. You get? So, this is almost like some father, grandfather right here. If I need to introduce him to you, then you need to do more in what you are listening to. All right. It's a raucous, futurist, a unique mind, and a global phenomenon is Olakunle Soriyan, known popularly as PK.
Thank you.
PK!
Blessed to be here.
Wow. I'm so glad. I'm really, really, excited to have both uplines of mine on Black Flame. So if you think that my thinking is edgy, my thinking is radical, these are two of the people that you should blame for it. So I'm gonna blame PK. You should blame PK. I met PK 13 years ago. 2012.
Yeah.
That's 13 years, right?
Yes.
2012. I can never forget. It was in the ministry in Ojota.
Yeah.
And I went to see him afterwards, and he was the first person to tell me, he said, Gaise, your music is not really for the church.
All right.
I can never forget that first meeting. And it sounded, even though I had scripture, that kind of backed that up. I never understood that scripture in that light. PK told me, your music, I won't say Yoruba, but you people, I have to be translating. Your music, people have to come and meet you. Not that your music is not an intro to a message. Yeah, I remember him saying that. Your music is the message. So people have to gather to experience you. This was in 2012. Yeah. And it took me probably 5 to 7 years to catch up to that word. So thank you so much for who you are to me, to us, and to this generation. So
Privilege.
let's jump into it.
Awesome.
You are a global entity, which means you are not restricted to one geographical location.
Correct.
But I'm aware that some years ago, your primary base, you moved it
Correct.
to the United States.
Correct.
So your primary base is in the United States, which means over the last, I think, about 6 years, thereabout, you've put your base
Yes.
in the US, and then you operate from the US all over the world.
Correct.
And so for the best part of maybe 50 years, your base was in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And you operated from Lagos, Nigeria.
Yes.
And so let's say you were domiciled in Africa.
Correct.
Now you're domiciled in the United States of America, and you have engaged people of African descent, but who weren't born in Africa.
Correct.
Many have never been to Africa.
Correct.
So my question is, in your interaction with Africans based in Africa all those years, and now your interaction with people of African descent who are not
Yes.
necessarily Africa based,
Yes.
or who may not even consider themselves African,
Africans. Yes.
right? What are the connecting dots that you see? Because I want us to kind of like touch on,
Yes.
Yes, us.
I hear you. First of all, it's a privilege to be here. Gaise Baba is a force and a movement, right? And I enjoy the weight of your representation beyond the idea of a brand. It is the message that you carry. And every time I see your voice, whether singing or speaking or talking or teaching, right? The message is the same, so I thank God every time for the uniqueness of your path, the authenticity of it, and most importantly, the humility in accepting it, because options are oppressive. And when you have options, it can be tough settling on a path that passes the test of essence, not necessarily of popularity. Right, and that is the path you have chosen. So respect. ID Cabasa, legend always. He doesn't like to be called a legend, but he's one, and I don't care whether he cares about it or not. That's what I call him, because he's a legend, and he has to be celebrated. We have to give people like him their flowers while they are here.
Your flowers, sir.
ID Cabasa, blessing.
Give
every
me money.
time. It's a privilege and a honor to be part of the great story that you built. It's just a privilege that I play a little part there, and I'm grateful. So, yeah, you are correct. I've journeyed around, and I'm still journeying around the world, right? And I see a gap. I pray we get there in this conversation. I see a future for Black, and I see how endangered that future is because of the gap that I see. So you find African Americans who somehow don't understand this gap. And you find Africans themselves don't understand this gap. The idea that people were taken from here to, all over the world, right? If you find anybody with a Black skin anywhere, he has some history here, whether he accepts it or not. And then you find people there say stuff like, Africans who come from Africa, born and bred in Africa, and who visit, say, North America or anywhere else in the world, cannot relate with the reality of the Black people in that space because they experience like slavery and slave trade, but I try to pause them right there to say, make that distinction between experiencing slavery and experiencing slave trade, because we all experience slave trade. Right. Now, the idea is that for every Black person anywhere in the world that was taken as a slave to anywhere in the world, there's a disjointed family left behind in Africa. So we have a different experience of slavery and slave trade, but we have the common experience of that subject, because daddy was taken, mommy was taken, the children were left behind. Daddy was taken, mom and the children were left behind. The kids were taken, the parents were left behind. So there is a taken story, there's a left behind story.
Right.
And that creates a gap. And my belief is that until we come to the acknowledgement of that gap and bridge it, the destiny of Black remains endangered critically. That's what I find.
Wow. So even though, so it's not, if I hear you correctly, it is not a, so when you say daddy was taken, this is, well, hypothetically, but not hypothetically. Daddy was taken, mom was left behind. Now, the coming together, bridging that, is not that same daddy and that same mommy.
No.
Is the essence.
Yes. Is the essence of the destiny of Black. The idea that there is a meaning in our unism that was compromised by that separation. But that's brain drain at its earliest appearance.
Right.
But brain drain naturally is a persecution that morphs into brain gain. There is no brain drain that doesn't somehow along the line morph into some brain gain. Now, whether we will maximize that gain and use it to re-represent the past, not reenact the past or try to fix it, but re-represent the past into a new future, is a symposium discussion. But what has happened is that brain drain usually only precedes brain gain. And now we have a brain gain across the world. Whether you go to the Bible or you go to history, you go anywhere, you find that there's always a critical dispersion, right? We have the Jewish dispersion.
Right.
We have the African dispersion. We have dispersions across the world, right? Every nation really that has formed, right, based on that thesis have become a powerhouse. America itself was not built into this modern America by Native Americans, right? It's a people who visited America, right, who turned that. So that is a dispersion on its own, right? The Jewish dispersion built the Jewish nation that we know today, right? So in every way, we must recognize and accept our story, embrace our journey, but trust the future enough to seek the gains that we have inherited by virtue of the persecution and that we have experienced, which has created a dispersion. This dispersion is a force, and this dispersion cannot function into meaning independently, because it has to remember that it came from somewhere.
Has to be a bridge.
And the base too cannot function independently. It has to recognize that a part of it went somewhere. And when we come together, we have genius and heritage building a new type of future. And that's power.
So if I hear you, that is, there is power in our diaspora.
Heavy power. And I believe that the destiny of the continent of Africa cannot be complete until we are able to bridge that gap. Right?
So I'm going to just tie both ends together, because now I see a manifestation of or an example of what you've explained in music.
Yes.
And in the arts.
Yes.
So, and I mean, ID Cabasa is ID Cabasa. I understand that part of why Afrobeat blew up into what Afrobeat is globally is because of diaspora and the heavy diaspora that Nigeria has all over the world. So do you see a confirmation of what PK has explained, that as a people we need? Do you see a parallel in music and in arts with that? And if that has happened, how can we now expand from there to other aspects of living and of life.
So, like PK said, a lot was actually taken from us. Most times when we discuss this issue of things taken from us, I think we focus more on the people taken, but we don't focus on some element that were taken alongside. They took music, they took culture, they took a whole lot of whatever you want to call it, that over time now has also metamorphosized into some of the things that we do right now. Okay, let us look at rap music. Rap is rhythm applied poetry.
Right.
It's like, okay, I remember when we started way back then, people would say these guys are rapping in Yoruba and all of that. But within our circle, we know that, look, we are just going back home. Because rhythm applied poetry, if you trace it very well, you will see stuff coming from Ewi, from Ijala, and all of those things.
Ewi.
Yeah, from all of those things. Even if you look at what rap is metamorphosizing into today, it's
Melodic
more
rap.
of, melodic rap. It's more of the Ewi and all of that. So they took a lot from us. They took sound. They took all of that. So over time, when I think for some of our probably ancestors, should I even call them ancestors? Probably people that came before us. There has always been this part of them that still want to hurt what we had or what we have. Like, I believe that if Afrobeats did not have the kind of, should I say, freedom for people to tap into it and do it the way they want to do it now, it would have died a natural death. So what the diaspora has done for us in terms of these Afrobeats, I'm not saying Afrobeats without the S was what I was, but with the Afrobeats with the S now, what has happened is, and which was what happened with Kodetins when we started the Yoruba rap scene, we discovered that people, when you speak a language that people understand easily, I don't know why we even did what we did there. Probably we're just looking for ways for us to get some level of traction. So myself and Tufat, we felt like if we speak a language that they understand, they will pick up our music, then they will help us share it. Then there's also this funny loyalty to the fact that they are doing what they should be doing in English, they are doing it in Yoruba. So we started with that. But right now, I will tell you that I have more clarity. That it was beyond, because if that was all that was behind it, then we would have been able to appeal only to Yoruba people. And that would be the end of it all. But I found out that even within the music itself,
Traveled far, man.
yeah, the music actually travels. Fact, I was talking to somebody recently and I say a 4-minute song definitely sticks to people longer than a 2 hours message or 2 hours anything that you hear. Right now, Ashake was singing over. People are buying the music, not just buying the music. They started learning the language. They started learning which means that we are also taking stuff out now. But if you look at the power that the diaspora gave to us, was they had technology that we didn't have.
Okay.
Probably if, like Piki rightly said, if some of those people were not taken, we might still be busy trying to, create music the way we used to create it. Probably we won't have we could have those.
Or maybe we will have developed in a different path.
In a different
We will
path.
never know.
Yes.
But this is what we have now.
So a lot of our earlier, shout out to King Sonny Ade, shout out to all of those people. Fela Nicola Pokutsi, Orlando, Ike Dairo, Ebenezer Obey, all of those people that were able to, so not that they relocated, but when that space opened, that it started traveling, a lot of change came into what we have now. We were able to have better technology. We were able to also have better structures around music. Let me fast forward to now. As I speak now, I think I've seen like 2 or 3 generations of whatever music that you call it in Nigeria.
And you don't want us to call you legend.
I've told Piquet, the only legend I know is Legend Extra Stout. So I've seen different generations, like 3 generations now. And I can say that apart from the number that we get from streams, in terms of structures, we have been able to do better compared to where...
With diaspora.
Yes. we're able to do better, because if you check it, most of the guys that are putting the system in place and that are doing all of those things, they come from there, or some of our guys will go there, learn some of these things. We were making music just for the passion. People never knew there was so much money. There was so much money lying on the table for people to pick. So those guys leaving, going to learn all of these things, brought in the business, and beyond the business too. There is also, and I love what PK said, when PK said it's becoming a game, because now we have learned to document beyond oral history.
Yes.
We've started learning to document through videos, through books, documenting a lot of even details about how we make music, and details about what really guides our sound. And all of these things, which should I call it exposure? Because like rightly said, that if you tell a villager to describe a toilet for you, the best they will describe is a latrine that is well painted. Not that they will describe, you will never see what do we call WC, or what do we call it?
Yes.
So I think that too has really helped us. Did it have any adverse effect? I would predict that, which is also going to be good for us. I will predict that Afrobeat is going to become a global thing, which the whole world is going to take. But I will also predict that it will get to a point Nigerians...
It's not global already.
Yes, but Nigerians will want to gatekeep it, which is going to be a major mistake for us.
Okay, by global, you mean there'll be people from other nationalities?
Already that has started happening.
That are making
when you go to
music.
how come you are nominating Chris Brown on Afrobeat, and you have a lot of other white people.
Started, right.
So yes, which is a good drive. I know a lot of people don't like this. It's a good drive, because now we have something that we are also exporting that is becoming. And what I'm saying that I predict is, by some, let me say Nigeria, because I've not been around Africa. I don't know how other African culture actually thinks. I think in Nigeria, there's a need to consciously educate people that, look, don't gatekeep this thing. Is a channel, like PK rightly said, for us to actually put something forward, for us to have more gain. Because I've started noticing that there is this part of us that keeps saying, why should a white guy be winning Afrobeat of the year? Yes, it can start with you. Doesn't mean that it should end with you. But what I think we need to protect and really keep is that part of telling the stories, and make sure that we keep the authenticity of the story to ourselves.
And again, I even want to add to that we shouldn't be too excited about the fact that people of diverse cultures are consuming our language and consuming our culture, right? If you look at reggae music, enjoy that. A lot of people didn't understand patois. A lot of people didn't understand what they were saying, but they got the rhythm, they got the energy, they got the language, because at the end of the day, you know, language goes beyond words, right? Beyond dialect.
PK, they have the weed.
Yes, you know, and all of that spread and the whole world took reggae. But if you look at where reggae is now compared to where reggae was, you know, something has faded in the kind of global celebration and acceptance that greeted reggae in the 70s, in the 80s, even in the early 90s, right? And if Afrobeat is not, you know, intentional about the longevity of its celebrations, right, it can suffer the same fate. And it begins when we begin to pretend that just because something originated from you, right, requires of necessity that you get it. If you get it, right, you are creating a big problem, like something close to what the Chinese are facing, where you want to dominate the world, but at the same time, you want to preserve your own culture, and you want to limit what comes into you. Soft powers transform nations. America is not big because of its army. America is big because of his music, his movie industry. Hollywood is by far writing more scripts and impacting popular culture in the world than Washington, Pentagon, you know,
Oval Office,
you know, and the Oval Office combined, shaping the thinking of the world. So when your music cannot scale, your food cannot scale, your fashion cannot scale, you can be strong economically, you can be the global power. If you are going to surface at that level, you must be willing to share those parts of you and to receive those parts from the world as well. And God has blessed us with a massive instrument like Afrobeat. You see, my problem with Pan-Africanism at some level is the idea that we have to preserve what is ours, protect it, and then reject whatever is coming from outside. And that it is in how we use our things that communicate how African aligned we are. Meanwhile, if we flip that, we will say, so what's suit? Why is the African wearing suits in the sun in Africa? That's pan-Europe as far as I'm concerned. So
why is the African playing a guitar?
Why the African playing the guitar? That's so you find that when you are really Pan-African, it is that the whole world can join us to eat jollof rice. People of diverse cultures can join us to eat tuwo. It's not to fight what is coming. It's to brand what you have and take it to the world and get people of diverse cultures and diverse languages to consume what you have. It is in that cross pollination, it's in that exchange that we create that balance of power. It doesn't come from you preserving what you have. So tuwo needs to go.
It doesn't come from getting
what you have, right? It's to share what you have, but share it intelligently enough to force purchasing power across the world to invest in what you have. So the world has to eat tuwo. You need to see an Italian waking up, making jollof rice or pounded yam or a foriro or something. We have to find those kind of blends. In the same way that you have Toyota, American spec, European spec, we have to create specs of our food in the way that works for different economies and different geographies, right? We have to think like that. The American will put sugar in anything. You are not going to find a forero eating in America like we are eating it here. Sugar has to go into a bar somehow. It has to be rolled in a different way. You see, we will not eat it like that. The Chinese, what you call, Chinese food in Nigeria is not what is in the Chinese restaurant in Beijing. It's completely different. Some of the food that they eat there are even so raw you wouldn't even believe it, right? But what comes here is African spec. What goes to America is American spec, but it's Chinese food, right? What goes to Europe is for the Europeans to consume. The automobile industry understands that. The food industry across the world understands that. The fashion industry understands that. And we have to mature behind the pettiness of gatekeeping to the bigness of sharing and distribution. That is where the power is.
In fact, AI is demystifying all of that. For music is even the easiest thing to demystify, because at the end of the day, we are still running the same 12 notes on the keyboard. We are running the scale that we understand. So that is what. So at the end of the day, you can be figured out.
Come on.
It is when you can't be figured out that you want to say you want to keep, but you can easily be figured out. So the question, I agree 100%. So this is a call for Afrobeat. Rather than celebrating, I think is to get better.
Correct.
To almost say you are waking up every day and you're looking at how to evolve that sound to something that I'm not really talking about global acceptance, but I'm saying the sound to a point that it becomes rare.
Correct.
And that does not mean that a white guy in New York will not do the same thing. I think we also need to come to terms with the fact that the world is a global market now. There is no longer one guy coming from Ekiti or another guy coming from Ijebu that wants to protect the Gari Ijebu. Gari Ijebu is not scaling because some people are still... But if you go to China now, they make Gari Ijebu. Most of the food, Nigerian food that we eat, I can talk about London. They are not brought into London by Nigerians.
Correct.
Yes, they are not brought into Nigeria, and they are not grown in Nigeria.
Correct.
They are grown in Pakistan and all of those places.
Correct.
So I think it's just a function, and it doesn't even really speak to music. I think it speaks to everything that has to do with us. That look, we need to understand that when we create, we don't create just for ourselves, just for the pride of being a creator, but we create for the love of humanity, it's time for things to spread and all of that. Yeah.
So, Vicky, there's a new generation. There's a new generation of Africans, young Africans. I mean, Africa is the youngest continent in the world. So,
sorry, it's the youngest continent.
It's the youngest growing population in the world.
Median age.
Who gave that?
Wise.
Who gave that?
Stats now. Stats day everywhere now. If you Google them,
it's 31 and below. 70% of the population
is under 30. right? So where I'm going is, we have this new crop of young people, young Africans, who everyone cannot relocate.
Correct.
It's still a minute fraction of Africans that relocate or migrate or whatever
Gates.
it's
Less
what
than
we want
5%.
to use, less than 5%. The significant multitude or the significant proportion is still will be here. What would you say to this late teenagers, early 20s who are in Africa? How do you find significance in the world, even if you have to operate from here?
So, first of all, relocation is overrated. And I think that the whole idea of relocation is built on the, ideology of survival.
Yeah.
And people who relocate essentially are running away from something for the most part, the majority of them, right? I don't consider myself as having relocated. I use a bigger word, which is penetration, not relocation, right? And the idea is that on any day, no matter what you are trying to do, you get stronger when your ideas are consumed by people of diverse cultures. The biggest ideas in the world, I don't care what it is, whether it's a product, a service, or an ideology. I don't care if it's the gospel or Islam or Buddhism or democracy or capitalism. I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's Coca-Cola or Pepsi or Microsoft or Google
Or Toyota
or Honda. The biggest ideas in the world are not consumed by the geographies of its creators. They are consumed, yes, by the geographies of its creators, but they are consumed more beyond the geography of its creators. So it's not Japanese people who drive Honda. It's not just Japanese people who buy Toyota. It's not just Americans who drive Ford or who use Microsoft or you use Google, who are on Google or on Facebook.
Or Apple iPhone.
Or iPhones. We have these products across the world, right? The idea is that when you think about creating meaning at the highest level and creating engagement at the highest level, a part of you must recognize that we have 8 billion people in the world. There's an excitement that comes from dominating your local space, but there is a sense in which you have to graduate and elevate beyond that to understand that ultimate power at the level that you want to experience it will come from spreading your value beyond local to global. And even that, we now see new voices like Elon, like Jeff Bezos, like, spreading a new type of expression, which is galactic. Right, and these guys are not global anymore. They've taken global. Now they are going galactic by doing things in space and thinking about Mars and about human possibilities in Mars and space tourism and all of that. It is that on your best day and on your highest accomplishment, there's more. And so while you may not have an ambition to go around the world, you have to have the humility to accept that you have conquered the space. And when you have, it is a call to a higher ground. And you have to take that, right? So for me, when I look at the people who are here, I say that being global is not, first of all, the movement of your body, as it is the movement of ideas.
Yeah.
Now, as some ideas move, it will require that the body follows it. Right?
Some ideas.
Some ideas. A lot of other ideas just need to move while the body visits it and returns to its base. Bill Gates doesn't live in Africa. Microsoft Word is in every corner in the world. He visits, his body visits those ideas where they are. But the ideas is what is moving. Some ideas doesn't even need visitations. Right? The people who drive Coca-Cola are not going to go visit it anywhere. Right?
Who drink it.
Do you understand? So ideas move, the body visits, or the body follows. Whichever way, ideas must move first. Right? So I tell people, even in Africa, We are now in a technology-driven world.
Yeah.
The world is going fast into what I call a technocracy, where all ideas are governed by technology and managed by technologists of some sort. There is a minimum understanding you have to be able to shepherd ideas in the 2030s and even today. So part of the thinking is, no matter what you are doing, you have a phone in your hand. You have data on that phone. Anybody in the world can see you, from Barack Obama to somebody in prison. Anybody can see you, right? And say, so this guy is doing something in a corner in Banjul or in a corner in Nairobi or Lagos, right? Anybody can see you.
Yes.
And the world is getting flatter and flatter, right? You can no longer pretend that such power has been given to you. And those power has been given to almost everybody in the world. How do we maximize that? How do we ensure that we run a 24-hour economy? You can only do that online, right? You don't say because you don't have 24-hour power supply. Well, people have 24-hour supply. Those are people you think about. And if your website is up and you do the right digital marketing, you may not have power in your location, but people are seeing your website where they have 24-hour power supply. Now, if you pretend that you don't know that and you are defeated by the 24-hour power supply that you don't have in your neighborhood, you are logging yourself off a global economy that has been given to you with the instrumentality that you control. Even if you are in darkness, your product can be in the light of the world with 8 billion people ready to consume it. Even if you are in darkness, your product can be in the light.
Sweet that.
Out there, ready to consume it, ready to chase it down, right? And while you are sleeping in the dark, money can be getting to your account from somebody buying from Belgium or somebody buying from New York or somebody buying from London, right? Anything can be seen. Any idea can move. That is on one level. So I say to our people, though, we also have 1 billion people ready to buy in Africa.
Yeah.
Right? So there is now a partnership between your local strength, right, and your global power. Or let me say global possibilities.
Right.
Right. And if you recognize that the same instrument that can take you from Lagos to Accra is the same instrument that can take you from Lagos to New York, right? It's called internet. It's called devices. It's called data, right? So the same positioning that can get somebody to see you in Dakar.
So your products don't need a visa.
It doesn't need a visa like you need.
Our music.
So why do you limit your movement to the movement of your body, right? The world has become flat. Now, on a bigger tip, Gaise Baba, on a bigger tip, the future is black. And that is a consciousness.
I need us to hear that, like hear it again.
Future is black.
Future is black.
The future is black on many levels, and I will explain. First of all, we are dying faster than anybody is dying, and we are procreating faster than we are dying. So our populations are getting younger and younger. We are the future energy. We are the future of the workplace. We are the future of consumption. We are the future of production. We are the future of enterprise. We are the future of everything. Nobody's dying in Asia. They're going to live long. You won't believe it. Nobody's dying in North America. First of all, they are not getting married, right? Those who are getting married are married people of the same sex. And the more men marry men and women marry men,
the less
procreation is happening, the less production is happening, right? Africa is producing at an incredible rate. We are the future energy. We are the future population. Now the whole world is coming to Africa to engage, whether we like it or not.
But
we are the future market.
If you say we're the future energy, future all this, right? But what we are procreating, we're increasing in number, but are we increasing in value? Are we increasing in
sense?
Interestingly, we are. Interestingly, we are. You see, a new generation of Africans are rising, and they are rising fast. One of their most powerful instruments is technology. They have access to the internet. They have access to all kinds of devices that can connect in real time anywhere in the world, right? Don't forget as well that the reality of the African population is that we are growing. Statistics show that we are acquiring skills, particularly future skills, right? We are very relevant in the online space. We have how many unicorns that have come that are worth over $1 billion in the last 5 years, right? We are busy in the fintech space, right? We are experiencing speed at a level that no continent is experiencing in fintech, for example. Possibilities in Kenya and in Nigeria are not happening in America. I don't want to, I'm not sure you can transfer money from your phone in Jamaica. I'm not sure. I'm in the United States, right? You can't transfer money from your account to another account like that in real time in less than a minute. You have to embrace the technology of Zelle, right?
Cash App.
And if you are going to do in Nigeria, I can move any amount from my account to another bank account, to another person's bank account, right?
From your device.
Or from my device.
Without any external, without any third-party app.
Third-party app, right? And that speed. So the fact is that our young people are locally are developing fast and plugging into the gift of technology. Now, we now have an incredible number of young people who were born in America, born in Canada, but their parents
England.
brought them back here. We have a lot of Americans growing up in Ido, in Enugu, and in Anambra.
I hear you.
We have in every A-list school in Nigeria, probably out of 10 students in that class, in different schools across Nigeria and even Africa, 7 of them, 8 of them probably
American
have
citizens.
American passports. They have British passports.
Because they were born there.
Because they were born there. Their parents are waiting for them to be 18 to unleash their first world power, access to credit, power of the currency, enabling environment, equal opportunities. Those things await them. Now we have another thriving diaspora, right? Defined critically by young people. So their fathers may have been defeated by the weight of survival to run to America, but these children are
and
colorblind.
restriction.
They are fear blind. These guys are audacious. They are learning the basic skills available, anywhere in the world, right? So if we pay attention, we realize that there's a new army of Africans that is rising across the world.
That's his song.
And they don't have the intimidation, the low self-esteem of their fathers and their uncles, right? Apart from the fact that when you take a peep into the future, there will be more black people working than white people living. In another 50 years, there will be more black people working than white people living. This is not my opinion. These are facts, right? If you go to Washington now, and I always tell people that black in the future is not a color, it's a vibe.
Yeah.
Necessarily so. A vibe will be like you go to Washington, you are going to see cabs in Washington, all called yellow cabs. Yellow cabs.
Not all color yellow.
But these cabs are not yellow. They are green, blue, white, black, different colors, but they have yellow cabs written on them, right? Because yellow in that sense is not a color, it's a vibe that binds different colors together. As we move into the future, a white man will say, I'm black. It will make sense to a lot of people now, but it's going to happen, right? People are already identifying as grasshoppers, so color is easier. So color is easier, right? So this future is interesting, and with a dominant black population in the world, nobody can afford a vengeful black, and I say that responsibly. Right? And power dynamics dictate that those who control today of necessity play their stake in the future. So a dominant black has to be a collaborative one. It can't be a vengeful one, right? So I see a lot of interesting trends in the world, Cabasa, and you guys know better, right? If you make country music. If you make country music, who consumes country music the most today?
White folk.
Right? Okay.
Older white folk.
Great. Now, in a future that is black, with more black people everywhere, if you don't create black consumers of country music. Is country music not essentially endangered
extinction
when its consumption becomes a minority?
Right.
Good. So if you are wise as a stakeholder in the future, you want to create black consumers of
Afro country.
Afro. There are people do all sort of Afro now.
So enter Beyonce. Maybe it makes sense that Beyonce had to produce
a country album,
and more black people have to show up in that regard, because that creates more black consumers.
Chances are that move wasn't even a Beyonce move.
You see what I'm saying? So some people are writing a grand script.
What's going on and what
is happening, right?
That thing that you talk about, about you see there are different levels of power,
yes,
in society.
Yes,
so there are people who've seen, we have to get this genre into these people. Who's the person that can get this genre into these people? Is this person? All right, let's
go.
The person there.
And people can debate that all they want. I won't even argue. But the truth is, with what is going on, we are connecting dots. You're asking me to pretend that I'm not seeing dots that are being connected, right? So
what I think Cabasa was also saying, if we take it from here, is what's the grand scheme that we are orchestrating with Afrobeats? We don't see it. How are we? So if whether it is confirmed or not, it's a grander power or whatever that has decided we need to get country to black folk. Who can get country to black folk? That means we need to be thinking of how do we get the African vibe to where? India, Entarema. We need to get the African vibe to China. How do we create a blend of the Afro movement with K-pop?
Or what's that guy that is a big chef on TV across the world? Chef Ramsay? Did I get his name right?
That does the
British guy?
Ramsay Gordon.
Ramsay Gordon. Somebody can go and do a whole season show on jollof rice and puff puff and fund a whole competition on that. The whole world will eat jollof rice. Somebody has to drive that collaboration. I mean, these things have to be intentional.
Is it that our bigwigs, I'm trying to find the right word,
because they escape the clause
thinking
of survival.
That level.
They are too busy being grateful for the status they have attained. They're not really seeing the future, and it's understandable. The sympathetic resonance. So, but the people who are going to be stakeholders in the future must begin, and we are getting there, because you are going to see. We should not be debating between Ghana and Africa and Nigeria which jollof rice is better. How many people are in Ghana? How many people are in Nigeria? We need to get 1 billion people eating jollof rice in the world. Noodles is not our food. Pizza is Italian. Spaghetti is Italian.
Right.
A lot of people have consistently put their culture in the face of chicken. It's American, right? We can do these things. We just need innovators, entrepreneurs, right? Coming together to understand the power of the arts, of entertainment, how much traction they create, how much acceptance they can speed up really fast. Investors have to see the big money in these things. We are not eating ketchup because it is tasting well. Somebody funded this thing. Somebody said, I'm going to get the whole world eating ketchup, right? Somebody said, I'm going to get people eating leaves, and then put it together, design it, and send it around the world, and everybody is eating leaves.
We all become vegetarian.
So there's so much potential,
right.
Picky, let me ask this. So where do we put the path of survival, which is almost like a default setting for most Africans?
Yes.
Now, let me still use Afrobeat and many of the other stuff that we do. Like, we create stuff to sell, not really to keep.
Correct.
That's what we do in Africa.
Sadly.
We create startups, not really to, from a place of essence, we want to sell it. We create music. In fact, as we speak now, if you are really looking at the grand scheme of things, we don't really control Afrobeat, because he who plays the pipe,
dictates the
tune. So the money to fund Afrobeat, the money to fund most of this,
not coming from Africa.
It's not coming from Africa. I can't say authoritatively here that now there is a need to change our Afrobeats sound, not coming from we Africans, but coming from the people that are putting the money down.
Correct.
So there are a lot of this freedom that I think.
You're saying there's an active drive to change the way Afrobeats sounds.
Yes. Now to even your artist, there is a subconscious. There's a subconscious. They are lost in terms of identity. There's a subconscious mindset that is being sold to them that, look, you have to be this before you can really be reckoned with. So most of them really sees where they are coming from as trash.
Yeah.
What is presented to them, like you rightly said, that if it is the idea that is jackpying, it makes more sense. But it will be hard for somebody that is pursuing survival, somebody like you said that is just happy, celebrating the newfound comfort that he has gotten from himself and all of that. Don't you think this survivor mindset is also a threat to some of the future that we see Africa becoming and all of that?
It is. You know, there's a word that I throw around a lot called adventure capital. Okay. It is the idea that, you know, the best of ideas in themselves are incomplete and requires redemption.
Yeah.
The best of ideas. Everything is in a phase of development. Everything. Your expensive wristwatch is in a phase of development.
I don't wear.
And once
you know, make me looking high. That's why I say
once you are in a phase of development, once anything is in a phase of development, which everything is in, then it is in a season of usefulness. You can't be in a phase of development and not be in a season of usefulness, meaning that if you don't move to the next phase of development, you are going to be lost in that season and expire, right? And so that is true for cars.
In bended time.
So we need to understand that, because nobody can pursue more than they see. You can't pursue more than you see. And if what you see is comfort, at 500 million naira, you are very comfortable. You are a big boy. You live by the beach in Lekki. You travel abroad for summer. You drive 2 German cars. You change them every 3 years. You are powerful, except that you don't have $1 million yet, right? You don't have $1 million yet. By the test of locality, you are awesome. By the test of universality, you are normal.
Yeah.
Your normalcy is so loud that you have to be at another level of self-deception to pretend that it is special, because it's nothing. Right? You don't have $1 million. You just have 500 million naira. Okay? But if comfort is what you see,
if you have $1 billion naira, you don't have
$1 million yet.
Yeah.
You know.
Sadly.
But with $1 billion naira, you are a big boy in your naira economy.
Oh, my guys are ballers.
You are a big boy. Right? So the idea is that we have to recognize that whether we like it or not, everybody cannot elevate at the same level. Somebody has to be stupid for wisdom to continue to have value. If foolishness is no longer a possibility, wisdom will have no traction, right? People pursue wisdom because of the commonality, abundance of foolishness. Because rarity must be established to create value.
Right.
And wisdom is rare. That's why it's valuable. If it's commonplace, if foolishness is rare, the reward in life will be to be foolish. People will be paid for stupidity because it's a rare experience. If wisdom is common everywhere, nobody will pay for wisdom. If you do things right, you'll be poor. If you do things stupidly, you'll be rich. If foolishness is rare. Do you understand? So whether we like it or not, everybody cannot create redemption. We always need
to be a select few.
Who will take responsibility for the weakness of the masses and produce at a level that sets up what is called best practice, because best practice must be disrupted. I don't believe in best practice. I believe in next practice, right? But somebody must create a standard and people must be able to embrace that standard while he moves
to the next,
so that others can come and elevate, right?
To the next one.
So people can be on survival level. It is easy for me. A lot of providence has produced me, and I cannot settle. If you give me $1 trillion, I cannot settle. there's adventure capital that drives
Okay,
me.
but let's start from that.
Yes, that
You can start with me.
do you understand? So I can't settle. But some people will be driven by survival.
Yeah.
And we don't have a problem with that.
Subsistence.
We have a
Fine.
problem when the leaders
Okay, now we are getting
of
there.
the space, we have a problem when the voices of a space, when the representative of an industry, of a sector, right,
institution.
are the
Of an institution.
of an institution, of a community, are the ones that are driven by survival. That becomes a problem. Survival is probably a necessary part for the majority. But for those liberators and those change makers, they can't be that. And that is what ID Cabasa is talking about. And it's a big limitation if you continue to be inspired by the smallness of survival, right? There's so much problems in the world that we have to thrive on. People like the people we celebrate in the world are not trying to survive. They're not even trying to thrive.
But those people already do not need to be trying to survive. They are fine. These mighty men that we talk about, survival is not their problem.
But
they are more than
so
fine.
You said thrive now. They are not even trying to
They are
thrive.
not even trying to thrive.
They've already thrived.
No. So let's be clear. I don't think that, and don't forget, I've done refuse collection. You can be in jail.
Many decades ago.
You can be in jail. It becomes a problem when even you cannot recognize your moment of visitation. If redemption comes and you still choose to celebrate your jail, you see, that is what we are talking about.
That's it.
You see, so you can have a history of whatever, but at some point, a clarity will visit you. If indeed you are a messenger.
If indeed you are
a messenger.
I think that's the clause.
Yes. So what he's talking about is now messengers who are not seeing their message, who are not taking responsibility for their message, even in the face of echo and noise, that somebody is saying this is the
someone is no
destiny.
longer is no longer existentially in survival. Is no longer existentially in. That means person has already surpassed survival. Person has already survived thriving. Yet he's still not seeing himself in the position that Providence has put him to chart the course for a generation.
And
that's the sad case.
He has refused to be an idea shepherd.
Yeah.
He's an idea hireling. He's still producing maximally for himself when he has no need. That is poverty. The way I say it is that
is the
some
problem
people are
with
so
leadership.
poor,
Yeah.
all they have is money.
Yeah.
When you are producing maximally for yourself,
when
and you have no need
longer have a need.
for what you are producing,
So at that point, you should have
recognize that there
graduated
is
beyond
it's beyond
self.
you now.
To that journey of greatness.
Do you understand?
where-
It's like somebody who is looking for what is not missing or seeking what you have. Just imagine that your problem on this podcast now is that you are looking for your wristwatch.
As-
And all of us can see it in your hand.
as lunacy.
And then you are crying that, where is my watch? And you mean it. You are not joking. And we can see that you mean it. I don't know about ID. I'm going to take 2 steps. I don't know if you will bite it. Because the watch is in your hand and you are crying. You can't be seeking what is not missing.
Listen, yeah.
At some point, you must recognize, even if you don't, we will not pretend that we don't know that your poverty is deep. Because everything you seek is with you.
It's with
You
you.
can't be looking for what you have. It's a flavor of lunacy. Now, that is what a lot of successful people do. And that's what the guys is talking about. Because they are locked in their history of survival. They cannot see.
Even
their
when they've
ground.
gone beyond that, the thinking is still
It's there.
He that is in honor that
and
abides.
knowledge is like
It's
a
like-
beast in the field.
I know someone who heard that I was attending a conference in Washington and called me up to say, why are you going there? Don't go there. All eyes will be on you. I said, I don't understand. He said, you don't understand,
All of
that's
them
not the
are
place.
white.
They will audit you, they will check you, they will do this, they will do this. I said, I'm legal though. And you have been legal now for over 20 years.
Boy, does he know?
He said, wow, okay.
So maybe it was previously
That's
illegal.
true. It was illegal
Yes,
at
now.
some point.
So even when
And
it became legal,
after 20 years, he still has a mentality of illegality.
Yeah.
He still think he can appear in that space. It broke down. No? Because when I was done with him, he broke down. I said, bros, you are in history. You are in 2025, but you are still in about 21 years ago.
years ago, yeah.
You are free, but you are still in jail. You are a crying free man. You know, it's sad. And so many people are like that, where you are producing maximally for a need you do not have. It's lunacy.
Why does that sound a lot like a lot of our leaders, man? There's no. I'm trying to be like, because you all have so much abundance, yet you are still stacking up something you don't need. When you can enter into significance and generations after celebrate you for transforming.
So, guys, I think that is also an African problem, which I think we've had a conversation on, where people don't make wealth to actually be a blessing, rather they make wealth to oppress other people. It's very easy. Like PK said, that you have 1 billion naira. What comes to your mind is, let me throw a big party. Let me show off to my friends that, man, I don't arrive. I think we're having a conversation offline about dreams and vision.
Yes.
Where I said, like, for an African, you know, we are big on vision, vision, that let's have vision. And I was trying to explain that, look, I found out that we use raw materials that we see to build this vision, that by the time the vision is ready, we are late. Because most times we don't look beyond, what is it called? We don't look beyond possibilities that are not visible.
Correct.
You understand? Because when you talk to the white guys, and you, like in London, I have some couple of conversations with young guys, and in their mind they feel that, okay, you should know all of these things. As simple as the technology of what is it called, Bluetooth and all of those things. To a typical African, imagine that is,
yes.
How will you treat it? You want to first, which was why I said we love gatekeeping stuff, because we want to be seen as the genius. That poverty mindset. Yeah, I better pass my. You remember that illustration? I better pass my neighbor, kind of thing. I think it's something that needs to be driven home majorly, especially amongst the young, the youths that we have. Because I work in the music industry, and all that I see is people just trying to be number one, number two. Nobody's really pursuing essence.
And I also think that people don't understand the growth track of human gifting. Because human gifting has a growth track. You have to transcend beyond gifting, which is natural, to skill. Skill is organized gift. So you can organize events, but that is a gift. You can do that naturally.
Well,
when you have
natural
ability to organize events, talent. But when you have project management certification, you have converted it to a skill that is now visible in the system, transferable and rewardable by the system. Because at some level, you can't continue. Your testimony is not enough to promote your gift. So you need other instruments beyond you, because the best of you is always in you, but the completion of you is not only in others, it will also visit you, and you have to be positioned for that. But skills, as you know, I mean, you guys are great soccer fans. It's not enough to be skillful in a team.
To dribble.
You have 6 strikers in a team, maybe 2 or 3 will wear the jersey. The competent one, the one that wears the jersey, is the one that puts the ball behind the net the most. Unless you're right. It's a skillful guy.
Unless you're
our 2 teams cannot relate.
So you have skillful players who are not competent.
Yeah.
What is competent? Competent is positively deployed skill. Then you have expertise, which is a track record of
competently deployed skill.
So gifts and talent says, I have it. Skill says, I can do it. Competence say, I do it. Expertise say, I do it time and again and again and again. Then authority says, I have done it again and again and again across diverse sectors, and I reproduce it in others. So I say
and I reproduce it in others.
So the people who succeed even if they sing to that level, or they produce to that level, that's part of what Cabasa is teaching. We have to now begin to have conversations, town hall meetings, seminars, conferences, writing, sponsoring symposium discussions, position papers, right? And putting it out, showing entrepreneurs, inviting entrepreneurs to come into so show them the money of our space. This is where the money is, and have a true 4-hour conversation. Publish a communique, publish a white report that banks can read in their own boardrooms and say, oh, there's money in the acting space. So your ability to act and advocate for sponsorship is not enough. You have to document intelligently. You have to show entrepreneurs where the money is, because all he's thinking about is where is the money. So it's not enough to cry. No matter who is crying, tears must have a lifespan. You have to stop crying at some point, and sit down and talk to yourself. So you can't just be screaming and screaming. It's now time for people to understand that maybe where you are now, you've done well. You've won 2 Grammys or 3 Grammys. You are still singing. You are still young. But can you also accept that you now have capacity to shepherd, and that you can begin to think of the next level? And that your job is not just to produce more concerts and more concerts. Maybe you need to begin to produce conversations. Do you understand? And begin to get money people into the room, and begin to get bankers into the room, and begin to get venture capitalists into the room, and begin to get investors into the room and say, you can put money here. This is how this works. You can fund this. It's true for the movie industry, for the fashion space, for the food industry. We have to begin to be idea shepherds, not just idea hirelings, where we do so much for our own profit. We have to do so much for those coming after. That's when we are truly wise. Right? And that again is the distinction between what is happening and what is going on. What is happening is that you want to keep jumping on the stage and keep collecting money. What is going on is that you are going to aspire no matter who you are. No matter who you are. And when you retire or you aspire, you want to come into something bigger
than what you were.
Nothing says you have to fade. You don't have to fade. You just have to change your point of concentration.
You play, you coach, you become sporting director. It's endless.
So I think that growth track.
You can even own the club.
I think with conversations, these are the type of conversations, right? We need to see more conversations within, that space, and more people coming out to intelligently articulate possibilities for all stakeholders within after all, is show business, right? And we need to show more people the business and let them see that, you can enjoy the show, but you can take a lot of money away doing that as well. Yeah.
Our Christian folk would disagree with the show business part of it. For we don't sing, because this is Black Flame. Right. There was a question in my head. It would take us somewhere completely different, and I wanted to rate that ID. I want to be sure I want to go there. I was going to talk about how majority of African, like decades ago, Africa was predominantly polygamous.
Let's go.
Africa was predominantly polygamous. Now, Africa is increasingly monogamous in structure, polygamous in practice. So polygamous outside the structure.
Yes.
Right. Like, what do you think is the effect of that societal change between, say, early 20th century, mid 20th century, late 20th century, and in 21st century? I don't mind you bringing faith into it. Yeah, because also it's not generally, monogamous in structure. Some are monogamous in structure, monogamous in practice, right? So, and the reason why I'm asking is there are increasing talks or mentions or suggestions that we should return to a polygamous structure, in which case, okay, there are 4 wives or 3 wives, or so should we stick to the new waves we're on?
So there is unaccounted for data in all of this. Most Africans don't even want to get married again. They just want to sleep around.
Okay, that's another
Because
dimension.
if we just look at the part of should it be monogamy, we have religion that actually supports. Should I say it supports? Because I actually asked question around, and some of the condition that comes with is a bit.
It's unattainable.
Yeah, it's unattainable to have all of that.
You're talking about the male alone that is said in Islam.
So there
which
is a
talks
condition to it
if you
actually
can love
that
them the same.
equally, which it might. And for me personally, I don't really have an opinion. PK is counselor to all of that, because I it's not that I don't have an opinion, but it's more of a reserved opinion that I'm still breathing on. Because if you look at it, I've had conversation. This is what's the name again? Black Flame. And I'm not divorcing faith. I'm not divorcing anything, but I'm saying there have been questions, which PK is going to answer this question, but there have been questions that have been put forward that as it is in the beginning, so shall it be. World without end. Amen. Abi?
Yes.
And they were men. These are some of the conversations that have been brought forward in scriptures that were polygamous. They were great. I will not even use the example of Solomon, because for me at some point I felt that the supposed very wise man eventually was stupid or foolish as a family man, because I think he was specific. He asked God for political wisdom, the ability to do all of that, but he didn't ask for wisdom to manage family and all that. But I know as at that point it was not really a sin, which also when you said it was coming from our roots, our kings, they marry plenty wives. Even then, way back then, normal people, they marry more than one wife and all of those things. I feel it's more of a cultural thing for even those guys in the Bible, than because this scripture that we quote that so shall a man leave his father and mother and be joined to his own wife. Was that scripture not there when these guys were marrying 2, 3 wives and 4 wives?
Wait, no. That scripture is New
Came in
Testament.
the New Testament. And who told you that the practice did not continue?
Wait, no. Wait. No. If we want to go the faith lane,
We
the
should
New
stick to-
Testament, the New Testament is clear. It will be the husband of one wife.
Wait,
This-
sorry, hold on.
Some people tell you a leader.
A leader, yes.
Some people tell you
so
if,
that
if you want to be an overseer,
yeah, that is when you have one
it's
wife.
a leader. An overseer should be
what-
husband of one wife. They will say,
that's-
"I'm not an overseer."
Okay, that's one angle. Also, when you say the people were great, or all of that. Now, if you look at the patriarchs in the Bible,
Abraham.
when I look at Abraham wasn't polygamous. Yes. Yes, now. If you open Bible now, you see.
Okay, because he didn't marry them at the same time. Okay.
Abraham Sarah died before the next wife. Hagar was not a wife. Hagar was concubine that Sarah took to him. So Abraham wasn't polygamous.
Okay.
Isaac was not polygamous. Jacob technically wasn't, because he didn't ask for Leah. He didn't want to marry Leah.
But he did marry her now.
No, if you look, that's what I'm saying. If you
More wife than both of them.
those were their concubines now, those two.
No.
You know,
They are not wives now.
Yes, you are taking the conversation
new
back to
traction.
where
You
you
know
are
the new
running
traction about polygamy now.
Yes,
It's not
now.
asking you to have 2 wives.
Yes, so
It's asking you to have one wife and have
then
side
and
chicks.
have side chicks and have all of
That's
that.
what
So-
is scaling.
And that is where you are going to
Which is
now.
where you are.
Yes.
So they are not wives, but they are concubine. Concubine is side chick. The modern word for concubine is
side
side
chicks.
chicks.
Right.
So if we are not careful, guys, like I'm always very careful to put down with fence. without knowing why the fence was actually erected. It's either to keep a beast in or to avoid a beast coming into it. So if we keep, I'm asking all of these questions, not that in fact, one wife that I'm married to is hard to satisfy. Oh, they told me long. Not to talk of. I want to put, you understand? That I want to put more while on myself. Well, like we're having conversations, which I believe should go out there. The conversation is changing, PK. The conversation, like you rightly said, the conversation is no longer keeping all of them under the same roof. It's almost about where once I have one legally, because what you are saying legalistically is correct, that he married only one wife. When that one died, married another. But the guy too, sorry, he had to actually, he slept with.
In fact, now there's a lot of, they're also like, people just want, so for some people they want children, but not marriage.
Yes, there are a lot of, like PK will say about options. There are options that are distracting everybody from that conversation marriage. Like we normally converse that I have chosen to be a slave to the truth, which is Jesus, and I'm also choosing to be a slave, bravely to be married to one woman. But here, as we speak now, I'm saying conversation is beyond me. The conversation is going around. I've had conversations with people that will tell you that, Cabasa, when this person married more than one wife, that person married more than two wives. So are you now saying that God allowed that person to get married to several wives, and me, how am I different from that person from getting married? That is one. Then two, you've had people will say, how they say it? But you understand, Charlie. One head is not better than the other. That why can a king marry several wives? And me, as our culture, whether you are a king or you are even a poor man, you can marry two, you can marry three. And I know also of culture.
Whose culture?
Yoruba land. You don't have to have money.
I just want to be sure.
So there are cultures also in this world that the woman is actually marrying many husbands.
Correct.
So some of them are coming up. These are conversations that
example.
PK is our
I would like to speak to it.
Disruptor that I want him to really talk to that. Yeah.
I would like to speak to it, and I say this very humbly. I've heard a lot of school of thought developing, but I think that knowledge has a character. Mm-hmm. And when we miss the character of knowledge, we domicile its essence in our own context and experiences. Mm-hmm. And so we now interpret experiences by its peculiarity, not its principle. Mm. Principles are universal. When you teach a principle, anybody anywhere should be able to apply it. Hard work is a principle. Anybody anywhere can apply it, right? It shouldn't be cultural. Do you understand? It has to be maybe on the worst case existential, if it's not natural. You see what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So when you look at it from that perspective, while principles are universal, experiences are peculiar. Now, just because it is easy for you does not make it easy. Don't confuse what is easy for you for what is easy at all. Mm-hmm. It can be a tough thing, but by your history, by your exposure, by so many providences, it can be an easy thing for you. And just because it worked for you does not make it a principle for the world. And so when people become unguarded in making that distinction, they teach their personal experiences as principles for the world to follow. So they are teaching the peculiarity of experiences. And that happens a lot in religion, right? And so those who lay standards for people to follow and those who try to disrupt it are most of the time guilty of teaching their peculiar experiences. So those who pass information pass error. And what is missing, as far as I'm concerned, is the ignorance of the character of knowledge in itself. Knowledge has pretty much 5 elements that has to be understood. There's context of conversation. And most people don't go beyond context. In fact, they brag on context. But there's premise of that context. There is principle of the premise. There is dispensation of the conversation.
The time when that happened.
When that happened. Yeah. There's palliative. Yeah. Now, that is the problem. When something is the palliative, it is accepted. I'll give you an example.
It was accepted for a period,
In time to manage the dispensation.
Manner.
It is not supposed to be an eternal experience, a timeless experience. It is a temporary experience created to manage a dispensation. Let me give you a modern palliative. Orphanages.
Yes.
Orphanages. The standard is family. Every child should grow up in a family with parents in an ideal family. No child should grow up in an orphanage. But because of human wretchedness, somebody will be a fool to produce beyond his capacity and create children that cannot be led. And so society, in its sense of mission, sense of thoroughness, and sense of urgency, had to create a palliative, which is orphanages, to manage the unguardedness of men.
Right.
And orphanages, however, are not supposed to be meaningful. They're supposed to be a lesser experience that is better than kids
nothing.
on the street.
But the world is
You understand?
now.
So you see what J.K. Rowling is doing. She's a billionaire, and what is she doing? She's not investing in orphanages. She's saying, no, we can't accept orphanages as our reality. It's a palliative. My own non-profit, my own foundation is going to rescue children from orphanages and restore them back to families, because they have uncles, they have aunties. Some of them still have parents in this world. We will trace them. We will empower the parents to take their children, as opposed to empower the orphanage to keep taking children. That is somebody who is thinking on a different level.
You can't think.
That palliatives are not enough. Just because they work does not mean they are designed to do so. You know, we are collapsing to exist in the first place. We are collapsing so many meanings to be able to endure the fact of a palliative, right? Once you understand that, if we agree on this,
there's context,
there's premise, there's principle, there is dispensation, and there's palliative.
Yeah.
In everything you read, you have to look for that. Particularly when you are studying history, you have to find the five.
So
every time you are
when you are reading Bible,
every time you are reading the Bible, you have to look for that five. Otherwise, you'll be stuck in premise and be recommending something of 500 years ago to people of 2025.
That has expired.
Do you understand? That has practically expired. Or you can be recommending something that is eternal and claiming it has expired just because it came later. Just because something came later does not mean it's not supposed to have been. So people talk about the New Testament like afterthought. I'm like, you don't get that was the standard from the beginning.
From
the
Genesis.
people of Old Testament could not receive it.
Yeah.
So when God is dealing with you in a palliative, you interpret it as God. That is God's way. That's not God's way. That's not God's way. That is God coping with your ignorance and dealing with you within the weight of knowledge you can manage. Now, I have bone, but you can't do it. I have meat, but you can't take it. So take milk for now.
It's not that God's way is
not
milk.
that I desire to be giving you milk. Milk is not for adults. I hope people know that, actually.
Yeah.
Milk is not for adults. It's for kids, right? And so you are not supposed to take milk forever. At some point, you should elevate and begin to take strong meat and bone and move, right? So because God served you milk does not define God's way of serving. That is what God's way of serving in a state of ignorance, where you are. And so because you now know that it's God that saved you, no devil saved you, it's God that saved you.
So you
now build
a doctrine out of it.
Permanence on a temporary experience. And now begin to communicate to tomorrow's people that this is how God saves. Because you know that's how he saved you.
And you are sure it was
God that saved you. So this is how God saves. This is how God saves, right? So once we understand that, then we backtrack to where did polygamy come from? That's what we need to understand.
Where did it come from?
We must understand also that in the Bible, people were recommended for stoning by law. The law of God says that when you commit adultery, you bring the woman out and stone her to death.
So the people who are citing polygamy as a biblical principle are conveniently leaving that out.
Yes, and saying so we have to go back to so many things that were permitted by God in a palliative. Now, this is the
That
thing.
was dispensation.
That was dispensational. Now, it is not that God has any pleasure in stoning people. It is that there was a social justice system
Yeah.
that defined Bible days, ancient times. That no matter where you go in the world, brutality is consequential management. If you mess up, they cut off your hand or they cut off it's instant judgment.
Still do it.
There was no grace. They cut off your fingers, they cut off your hands, they cut off your head, they stone you to death. That was the social justice system. If the Bible was written in 2025, what you'll be seeing is that if you find the woman in adultery, divorce, or if somebody steals, jail the person. If you kill somebody, electrocute. You'll be seeing because you will seeing the character of our social justice system now. That was the social justice system then.
Yeah.
So God now interfering in human affairs and institutionalizing his own ideas was coping. If God had said forgive in those days, they don't know the meaning of forgiveness at that level. It's consequential management. You slept with somebody, we are cutting off your something. We are removing your hand. We are going to castrate you. That is what they knew. We all know that the world, this is fact now, the world of the human experience was short, was brutal. This is fact. From early men, it was a short life.
Across the era.
It was across the era. It was brutal. And it was survival of the fittest. Right? Some people are strong. They won't go and hunt. They will wait for the weaker man to go and hunt, to take all the risks. When he's back, he will go to his house, take his food and kill him. Do you understand? He's stronger than him, but you say, why should I go and waste my time hunting? You are as hungry as me. You go and hunt. When you get back, I'll collect your food. I'm stronger than you. That was how society was, and that's how we continue to grow. When we even came to law, where we can now begin to say, if you do this, we cut off your finger, it was an improvement. It was worse than that. You understand what I'm saying? It was worse than that. So the idea is that God tolerated many things.
Many of those things. Yeah.
They were not God's standards.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? And one of them, you see, let's be clear. When David took wives, first of all, when Israel was going to have a king in the first place, God warned them of things that are going to happen. That kings are going to do this. This is the behavior of kings. Now, I didn't choose kings for you. But if you are going to choose kings, it's not just going to have chariots. It's not just going to have bodyguards. Your sons are not just going to begin to clean his shoes and manage his palace. He's going to marry your many wives. He's going to do this. Right? This is what's going to happen. I can't stop that because it's
the way of
kings. It's the way kings do. So I'm going to have to walk you guys through that experience. Are you ready for that? Because if you are expecting me to wake up in the morning and kill all kings, it's a journey. They are as human as you are, and I'm going to have to walk with them. So God permitted that, and we are speaking integrity of scripture now, right? We're not speaking culture now. So part of what happened was God permitted that. God permitted many things as well. In the Old Testament, you must understand, there was no revelation of the ministry of the devil. There was no revelation of it.
Everything that happened was interpreted as coming
from God. The only reaction to mystery is devotion.
Yeah.
That was the only reaction. If you bring a camera in the wilderness, if you have shown Pharaoh and say, Pharaoh, look at you yesterday. They will add it to one of the plagues. They will say, wow, this is heavy. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Create something
because
you become a deity.
You will contend with Moses. Just disappearance created worship. You don't understand? The absence of Moses created devotion in the camp of Israel. Do you understand? How much more if you have introduced anything that represented cluelessness of any form was greeted with
devotion.
With devotion.
With worship. You
see what I'm saying? So part of what was happening was that there was no revelation of the ministry of the devil, which also meant the elasticity of evil was not understood. So when the devil is moving, they don't know. They don't know. So that was why you could read scriptures like, is it not from the mouth of God that both good and evil go forth? in the New Testament, we now understand that God cannot be tempted by evil. Neither does he tempt anyone.
Yeah.
But that was context in operation. Dispensation. That was dispensation documenting truth. That was truth being documented in the dispensation.
If faulty documentation because of the limitation of that
Of that time, if God has shown Isaiah a robot,
how will he describe?
what will he call it? If you are showing him a plane, what will he call it?
Yeah.
His context is bird. It's going to say, I saw him a big bird with hands like iron, with teeth like, with noise like the
Mouth
sound
sharp.
of 1,000 men. That's what it's going to say. It's not going to say, I saw a plane. He doesn't have any context of a plane. In fact, there are friends that I have now who are now drawing some things, and they are suggesting that some of the things documented in the book of Revelation were not beasts, they were robots. Some of the things coming out from the sea were machines. It's not that it was one. So we are going to see all these things as we grow and as we journey. This is somebody documenting 2062 in something BC.
20 AD.
Sorry. What is he going to call those things? You see what I'm saying? In the same way, there are experiences that were visiting them that could only be interpreted within the energy of the life, the present that they knew. Part of them also, Gaise Baba, is that there was no revelation of the ministry of the Father in the Old Testament. How many people call God Father? You see what I'm saying? So there's no revelation of that. There's no revelation of the ministry of the devil. How do you then credit source? How do you determine cause and effect when you have no understanding of origin? Do you understand? Or you don't know who control an environment. You don't know the stakeholders in an environment. How do you define the experiences? Do you understand what I'm saying?
So let's take it to that. Polygamy part.
Yeah. So these are very, very important. First, to understand the context under which those conversations, those experiences were happening. So when it goes back to polygamy was the experiences of the people of the time. When God came into the picture, in the same way that it took God how many years to introduce grace? It took God how many years?
1,000 or so.
Do you understand? To introduce residency of God in man. It took God how many years? For so many years, all God did was coming upon him for service and living. Residency had to be a curation. Right? So in the same way, God was not interested in human customary laws. God was interested in establishing divine law. And divine law, sadly, had to endure customary law and human law, right? Until it's time, until the people can receive it. And God has no problem with that. Now, just because God had no problem, let me tell you something, this God does not have a problem with. In the Old Testament, people will complain to God and he will bless them. They will grumble. Now, the Bible says a double-minded man cannot receive anything from the Lord. But in the Old Testament, people were not just double-minded. They were double-mindedly stupid. And that they would tell God, why are you going to bring us to the wilderness? We are hungry. Okay. Moses, give this to them. God wasn't approving their behavior.
Yeah.
But he was giving them what they want anyway. Just because he's not complaining does not mean approval. So because God did not complain or did not kill anybody for marrying 10 wives, for marrying 200 wives, does not mean God accepts that as a standard. Number two, just because God does not accept something as a standard does not bring on it eternal punishment. You see those two dichotomies. So once you see, so because God is against it,
does not mean you are damned.
Does not mean you are damned if you practice it. Just because God is silent on it also does not make it.
God
approves it. You see what I'm saying? So
how do we distinguish between the things that God's disapproval of translate to damnation?
I'll tell you.
And things that don't.
You know, Jesus answered the question. He said, give to Caesar
What is Caesar?
what is Caesar's, and give to God what belongs to God. A lot of problem is most people don't know what is on the list of what belongs to Caesar. They don't know what is on the list of what belongs to God. So they give to Caesar what belongs to God, and they give to God what belongs to Caesar. And God is saying, hey, I don't have a problem with Caesar. I made Caesar. Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. Just give to me what belongs to me. Jesus went ahead to talk about how people put premium on cumin and tithes, neglecting the weightier matters of the law. Love, mercy. That justice, that these things are. So whether we like it or not, even the book of John says there is a sin that leads to death. There is a sin that does not lead to death. And he said, I'm not asking you to make intercession for the former. He said, all unrighteousness is sin. He said, but there is a sin that leads to death, and there is a sin that does not lead to death. It's in 1 John right there, right? So we worry a lot about so many things without taking the discipline to really look at the premium that God has on it, right? So for me, the way I understand it, I don't think that God is sitting down in heaven that with the urgency of why Christ died and was crucified and ascended and now seated, and the responsibility given to ministers to execute based on that experience, that a man who marries 3 wives or 4 wives or 2 wives is the supreme urgency of the gospel of Christ, such that an entire curriculum has to be devoted to that conversation. I think it's petty and useless. I think that we should worry more about what leaders do, right? And leaders should continue to model what is right. And the Bible is clear. If you are going to be an overseer in God's house, if you are going to be a deacon, you are going to be a leader, you are going to be a bishop, let him be this. One of them is husband of 1 wife. Another one is let him have a reputation among those who are without. We should worry about that as well, because those who are without are sinners. It's saying it should be resourceful and have credibility in a way that can unlock the humility and curiosity of those who are without, which is sinners. So that is what scriptures say, and we should mind that, right? And that is what I believe. That's where I stand. We can supply so many other facts to this thing, but this is a timed podcast, and we don't want any unnecessary argument that is of no profitability to the flesh.
So, PK,
Wow.
your final word on that?
He has given it now.
I've given it.
Clearly. Let's make it a bit.
So my final word, if what I said is for whatever reason missed, my final word is that I grew up in a polygamous home.
Yes. So,
and I know firsthand what the intangible consequences of polygamous are that documents can never measure. I grew up in a polygamous home where competition was at its highest level, where your daddy expects you to love everybody in the house because they carry your last name, and your mom warns you about people who carry your last name. It's not saying they are your enemies, but it's saying be guarded. Now, as a child, that's too much for you, because these are people who carry your last name. By the time you become an adult, you become incapable of trusting anyone, because people who carry your last name, you have to be guarded with. In a polygamous home, your mom wants you to be first in class, not because of the ideal of excellence. She wants you to be first, because if you are first, the resources of the father comes to her, which protects you. So as a child, that's a lot. When you grow up, you begin to pursue the loftiest things in life for the wrong reasons, because you are being trained to pursue the best for the wrong reasons, not for the ideal of excellence, but because it buys you and your mom more space in the pocket of your dad. You see what I'm saying? And you live paranoia. Let somebody touch your head, depending on how enlarged that environment is. Don't eat here, don't do this, don't do that. You just live a life of suspicion and paranoia. And nobody is measuring that. I've spoken to so many people about polygamy, and I listen to everything they are saying, except that they are not describing my experience. They talk about the dad. You will hear a dad says, all my children are in peace. Yes, on paper, it looks like all of us were in peace. But we were dealing with things
Trauma
that
and all of that.
you cannot see. My life to today is still damaged on many levels because of my experiences in polygamy, and I've taken time to study it. Even in homes where they say we did not fight, we had peace, there are scars that are beyond documentation. And my conclusion, and I say this with due respect, is that you can't grow up in a polygamous home and experience normalcy.
Bam.
And there's nobody I have seen who is bragging on it. If I sit down with him, I will show him all the therapeutically. I will show him all the inadequacies he cannot account for. There's so much wrong in your life that you are not counting, and there's so much you are counting that does not count at all. And I will document that for you. And it's a burden, and it's a reality. We can speak to this issue of side chick as well. It's not like it's a testimony, because they are giving science to these things now that, you have to be having sex.
The eggs in the mask,
and then how many times can you sleep with you? Maybe that's science. Where I sit, I don't believe there are sciences that are subject to. And do you know how many things do you know that we now have some of the things we call planets 30 years ago are no longer planets?
It's weakness of science.
It's weakness of science.
Inconsistency
of science. Now you are recommending that people should go and be jumping around, and then in another 10 years are going to come and say, oh, we didn't consider this fact. And then they've created an empire that they cannot control. So how do you build life on that counsel? I would tell people, hold on to meaning. Hold on to meaning.
Hold on to meaning.
Hold on to meaning. A lot of advices are out there, but hold on to meaning. And that's very, very important.
Right.
And I'm not saying that by judging anyone.
Right.
I'm not trying to pull anybody down, because I know people deal with all kinds of experiences. I'm not standing on any platform pointing fingers at anybody, but I'm saying pay attention to me.
But if the council is pointing fingers, you collect the finger.
Yes.
I like the way Yoruba people describe all these side chicks. They call it agbere.
Thank you for going there.
Agbere.
Nǹkan tó ń gba èrè or collect gain.
Shino. Shino, that is used.
Misspend.
And all of that. So probably there are some of the things that people should actually consider, because all of these things, then they get cost of. So these are some of the things that, because sometimes when you describe things to people based on the fact that you are just telling them God does not want you to do this, probably when they see it more from the point of why God is saying you should not do it, it's not that it's God that is going to, that thing is going to affect.
Even what God says, there's a reason for that saying.
So by the time you know why God is saying it, as simple as probably doing some things that some people will say, like Christians now, we like to glorify weight from sin. And I can see that most weight, if not all, will eventually lead you to sin. We eventually lead you to sin. As simple as drunkenness. You said God is not against drinking and all of that. Okay, I'm not saying that you should not drink. By the time you start drinking and they call for a prayer meeting, knowing the way alcohol works. So, we try to put that part of maybe it's just a weight, I can do that. So I just think sometimes too, Bible, yes, has a lot of mystery in it, some of these things that we learn, but there's also common sense. Even that science itself will tell you, like, I know where that conversation of, they are saying prostrate thing and all of that, saying,
we have examples of people who have lived up to. I know somebody. I know somebody who lost his wife in his 30s and did not remarry.
In his 30s.
Yes, and he lived up to 90 something. And they don't remarry. Now somebody may say he's doing something in the corner, I don't know, but he didn't remarry.
You can find science to explain what you want to do.
I
think anything you want to do, you will get a quote or you get something.
All right. So I'm supposed to wrap up. I'm going to wrap up soon. Because, honestly, just give me like 10 minutes. Because, as we're talking, I was brooding and trying to say, what final question do you want to ask? What final question do you want to ask? And I had an interesting thought. And I've never done this on Black Flame, but I'm going to do it. right? So first of all, I have to like holler at Urbana Grills, our sponsors. So I'm gonna have, so we'll be doing it simultaneously. Prepare the Urbana Grill. I want you to taste it. I want you to eat it probably. That's one. But there are different people in this room right now behind the camera who are serving. I do not, there is not likely, it's possible, but it's not certain that they will have this access this close, maybe in a long time. So rather, the thought I had was, I'm not the one that's going to come up, that's going to ask that. Even if people have asked, they don't know yet. But I'm going to ask two people. One person, one thing on your mind, what do you want to ask? Ask it.
Great.
Second person, what's one thing on your mind? Ask it. So I'm going to do a lady, I'm going to do a guy.
Awesome.
The lady is Adeboyin. The guy is, what's your name? Tomiwa. Yes. So anything you want to ask, this is ID Cabasa, this is PK. One question, what's it?
We have PK in the room.
No. Just one. It's not one each. Johnny Gen Z. You want to take more that I give. Just one. One for you, one for Tomoa. So just ask one question. We have to be able to, don't worry, when you ask the question, I'll repeat the question. Sharp.
Okay, so my question is to PK.
Okay.
And it's like, for this generation and with the issue of I'm trying to be relevant, I want to do all of this, beyond the pressure, how do you balance purpose and influence? Like, if where my purpose is
Might not be influential.
Yes.
Right. So the question, I need to say it because they may not hear. For this generation, there's a drive to be influential and all of that. How do you balance purpose and influence? That is, waiting be my purpose, if you know, bring influence. How do you find that balance between purpose and influence? Because it's a generation that is very driven.
Yeah.
It's a generation that is very driven on influence.
So most people found influence. Influence is really curated. And for those who curate it, all kinds of dues will be paid on many levels that you don't want to know. So my advice to people every time is that stay true to yourself. Whatever your hands find to do. Now that is what scripture recommend as the path to purpose. You cannot recommend anything that says you should go and pray in one corner to know your purpose, or you should go to one mountain to know your purpose. It's a peculiar experience that is being taught as a principle. In scripture, there are only two recommendations to how to find your purpose. One, whatever your hands finds to do it with all your might. Two, three, faithfulness in little brings more. Mm-hmm. Whatever you are doing, do it with all passion. Don't conserve your energy. Don't conserve your network. Don't say, I will reserve my network when I start my own. There's something like that. You will never start your own. The third one says, if you are faithful in that which is another man, God will give you your own. You will get your own, in short. So I say to people, prevailing responsibility is the pathway to future power. Prevailing responsibility, whatever it is, whether it's on your own or with someone, prevailing responsibility is the pathway to future power. Everything in the future is gravitating towards you if you stay true to whatever your hands finds to do today.
Thank you so much. Hold on, Tomiwa. Give me the Urbana Grill. There's a park for PK. There should be a park for PK. There should be a park. Please keep speaking.
This is awful. So, like what she rightly asked, influence and purpose.
This is just tasting.
I think there is this issue. I think I might need to ask the Gen Z guys, what do they really think purpose is?
Deep question.
Because if you find influence in doing whatever that you find influence in doing, there should be a purpose around why you are doing it.
Correct.
It's like you are going on a journey. Purpose is not really what you are doing.
Yes.
Purpose is
why
you are doing it.
You are
you
doing.
understand? Because you might, like Pike rightly said, you might find yourself doing a whole lot of stuff at the end of the day, but there is I don't want to use the word goal.
Yeah.
Because PK has scattered my head with dream. And that dream, I'm actually operating on that partner. Because like we said, dreams now. Dreams happen to you.
Because dreams visit you.
They
They
visit you.
visit you. That became clear to me a few days ago that I called PK that, look, I found out now that, look, all this vision board that I'm drawing, by the time in fact, as I'm drawing the vision board, there's a possibility that I will fulfill everything on it.
Correct.
But there's a need for me to actually have a mental board that I can't even figure out. Like you said, somebody is drawing,
get
Yes.
you understand? And all of those things. So purpose, when you are purpose driven, you know it's not a destination.
Correct.
It's a journey. It's not about what you are doing currently.
Correct.
It's not really about what you find yours.
Correct.
It's the accumulation of several things that you are doing. They just keep on it. When you find influence I'm sure by the time you find influence, and what is influence? Not, we have a lot of influential fools now that
It's not about popularity.
yeah,
it's not about.
but if you find influence in a situation whereby you are able to get into people's mind, not necessarily by you fighting or forcing it on them, most times it will be a byproduct of your journey.
Yes.
That your purpose journey. And
That's how it happens.
Thank you so much. Tom, what was yours?
Alright, so
You wrote it down.
no. I was just trying.
Can you know why we like that?
Yeah, I'm at it.
My question is going to be more centered about survival and the entire poverty thingy.
Yeah.
So I feel like
Centered around survival and the poverty thingy.
so from what I've learned, poverty is not necessarily you not having money. You can have money, and the moment you're accumulating what you don't need, that's
You're poor.
poverty. So how do you break out of that? Okay, I feel everybody has an illusion of okay, if I have like some level of money, I should be satisfied. Then I should start working for like okay, making other people okay. Well, how do you
Repeat all of
break out of that illusion and you just decide that okay, oh, I don't need to get to this level of wealth before I start serving people with whatever it is that I can do to like help other people.
So I think part of maturity is many things. Part of it is the ability to delay gratification. Part of it is the ability to stop wanting. Right? The only reason why people hustle and people are unhappy is because
They want
they want. The moment you realize what you want or you stop wanting, your unhappiness disappears. And when you really mature, you begin to see that wanting itself is a trap. And there is no season for service. Service is the definition of the human condition. You don't grow to serve. You serve
to grow.
to grow. So from day one, you begin to serve. When you build a culture of service, you see, you come out of ownership into stewardship. So people struggle with being accountable because they've mastered ownership of properties, whether public or private. The person who has mastered ownership of private property looks like he's right because it's private property. You should practice ownership on it. Except that once you master ownership of private property, you cannot supply stewardship of public property. You are going to get into public property and own it as well. It is the person who can master stewardship of private property is the one that can supply stewardship of public property. The constant is the properties, public or private. Ownership or stewardship is the difference. So even that which is seemingly yours, you have to be a steward of it. And when you build a culture of service, you have a mentality of stewardship. That even the thing that you seemingly work for, you are a steward of it. Then sharing becomes dutiful for you, not luxury for anybody. Do you understand? So I think that is the difference. You are not going to get to a place where you should realize. If you do that, it's okay. If you realize it at some point. But the ideal is that from day one, you live in a culture of service so that you are a shepherd of anything that comes into your life.
So PK, just to add to what PK said, I might need to use his scripture. You know, this scripture happened to me at some point, and I actually found out that it's actually deeper than whatever we read, where it said they gave seed to the sower and bread to the eater. I think he gave them the same thing.
Yeah.
It's their mindset that determines what they use it for. If God is giving me beans, for instance, and is giving Gaise beans, if, let me use my enemy, is in the survival mode, all I will see is food. But when you have a bigger thing ahead of you, like PK rightly, when PK was distilling the scripture, seek ye first the kingdom, then every other thing will follow. If something that you are seeking is bigger, you will know that it's justice. You start to see seed, you will not see food.
Correct.
Because you can count the number of seed in an apple, but you cannot count the number of apple in a seed. So if you keep seeing seed, you might not know how big that orchard or whatever it is going to be, but you know it's going to be something big, and it keeps driving you. Because I can tell you that the first time I made my first 100 million, immediately that money entered my account, I became broke. Do you know what it means to be broke when you have money in your account? Because at that point, that money seems so insufficient. PK, that experience, I felt sad at some point that just 100 million, because by the time I put some stuff that I needed to get to it, that money was finished. So you cannot really, because if it is money, accumulation of money that you build on, you will keep accumulating money, but you will never at any point accumulate what?
Meaning.
Which is meaning, which is I like that. That could PK normally says that some people are so poor, the only thing they have is money.
Yeah.
You understand? Which is a problem in Africa, because the goal for them is not to be a blessing to humanity. The goal for most Africans is actually to be seen as a blessing, that I'm better past my neighbor thing. I had to use this scripture. One year I was having my birthday, and PK sent the scripture to me, and I saw the scripture again in 1 Corinthians 2, that, eyes have not seen, hear, nor heard, or can demand. The things that God have in stock for those that actually love him. And you ask, who are the people that really loves God? Definitely you will know there are people that are given to loving humanity. So if you keep reading that scripture, you see that the things that are yet to be seen, that verse 10 was now talking about the mind of God.
Yes.
There are some things that God himself is not even aware of, that the Spirit is going to reveal it to those that love him, which is to say, many of the things that are yet to be seen, that have been created, that is going to make champions, because you are seeking to love God, to love humanity. What will follow it is ideas that is going to, even when the money comes, it doesn't look like anything to you, because your goal is not really the money.
Yes.
You understand? You just become a pipe that water is passing through. You will never be dry. You always be wet. So
come on.
Woo! Right. I knew this was going to be the episode where I speak the least, because
I also spoke.
Because speakers.
Because personally, probably I should just say this, that when I was preparing to come, I was preparing questions in my mind, because I think, because we have
this happens regularly.
So
this happens regularly. So when I had that picture, I was like, I want to just ask questions
so that people, I'm sure I will definitely come back here, and PK will come alone too.
Sure.
So this particular one was meant to be you guys just here, because sometimes when we see people happen, like on my secondary school group, somebody was saying the guy that became big at 22 was lucky, and in my head I'm like, if not luck, may you run now. Because if you think it's by luck, you don't know some of the conversations that have gone behind the scene and all of that. So these are some of the conversations that over the years we've been having.
Sit or stand on the shoulders of elders. You'll be wise, man.
Correct.
Yes, thank you, Ubana Grill, our first sponsor.
Awesome.
They sponsored us almost throughout season 1. And what we always did was we just hand over the park for the guests.
Great.
So we just thought, no, let them experience it on set. So I know that people have different. You have your parks. You have your parks. I just want you to
Taste.
I know that for PK might decide, okay, it's
Day.
it might be a piece of chicken. This is mine, man. I love this. Yeah, I think you will like that.
It looks like it.
You don't need cholesterol.
Is this cholesterol?
Let God be true.
There's another one.
Let the Lord be true.
Let's see.
Please. You know. This is Ubana Grill. So what do you think?
Banana grill. You reach. Solid stuff.
Thank you, Ubana.
Are they in Lagos?
They're in Lagos now. Is at his Dolce.
So get notes.
Ubana is partnering with his Dolce, number 4 legally Ayorinde Street. I see I'm marketing your market now. Number 4 legally Ayorinde Street in Victoria Island. Ubana Grill is there and it's in Port Harcourt. Amazing
This
woman.
round off so that we can.
All right. Okay, sorry. Correct. Thank you very much for joining. And I don't have to ask you. I know you've expanded in wisdom. Practice it, and I hope that we all meet soon because we're doing great things. All right. My name is Gaise Baba, culture architect. This is Black Flame, the light of Africa. Aramanda is happening April 19th at the Landmark Center. Get your tickets and come out and have a great time in God's presence and with fellow God lovers that also love to vibe. It's Gaise Baba. See you.